black magic is too hard, but this time I talk about Replicator Samurai and why it was made by the devil. A class so hard nobody would be able to master it in a single lifetime. To know everything there is to know about the class isn't humanly possible, because like a lot of black magic classes, it's a complete accident of coding mishaps, 1 in a billion creations that can't be replicated. However, Kiwi has a game appropriately titled Replicator, where the only existing version of Osama Samurai exists for players to use, but it has its own issues. It is incredibly rough to play and has many weird restrictions and inconsistencies that didn't exist before. 2 strong BM1 players, Kolo and Siege, accurately explain why maybe Kiwi's ambitions might be a little misplaced. Trying to replicate something we don't even really understand is a big task. Despite that, a version of Osama Samurai exists in Replicator and Kiwi hasn't worked on it as of the time I'm making this video. One thing that stands out to me about this scuffed samurai is the tech I used to know was for some reason a lot harder to do or just straight up impossible. So I wanted to dissect the class and see what exactly was going on that made it harder. For my experiment, I was taking a look at the iconic DDC or WWC cannon flings, where you launch yourself like a cannon. Secondly, I was taking a look at orb summoning during strings. However, I will only be talking about the first tech because my results were inconclusive for the latter. Both of these things though are much harder to do. Before I can explain my results, I have to explain how a DDC cannon fling even works. My initial hypothesis on why it was harder was because of something going on in the cancel timelines, and this was fortunately correct and easy to check. Starting off, a player needs to enter ASDQ while in a cancel stream. It doesn't matter how, just use one of the million ways on Osama Sam to get the timelines going. ASDQ propels you forward normally and can be interrupted at any point with WWQ as its follow-up move. So to get the fling, you flick your camera 180 degrees opposite of ASDQ to set up a change in velocity. ASDC is needed immediately after to continue the cancel stream in the timeline. Now the hard part is doing AAQ and WWC or DDC, then followed up by WWQ while holding the spacebar, basically combining both 2-stage attacks. In total, the physics looks something like this. Finally, after WWQ, you end it off usually with ASDC to continue the cancel stream. So the fling itself is composed of this, and the entire setup in a very basic form looks like this. Cannon flinging is actually pretty easy by advanced cancel tech standards in black magic. Instead of being impossible for most top players, it is actually accessible for every top player and even casuals. But I'm lying right now. It's actually impossible for everyone on the Replicator version. Even though on the original version, I was consistently doing it one-handed. So what's wrong here? Well, going back to my earlier hypothesis, taking a closer look at the choke points in the timeline was my first approach. And immediately the first culprit was my WWQ or DDC not coming out in the timeline. So just like my other video where I dissect the tech, I used both hands to see what was going wrong. Obviously speed was an issue, so using my intuition, I looked at the most likely culprit being ASDC. I can easily input the entire string it took for ASDQ to finish around about 1.5 seconds, so the timelines actually look something like this. The string was reliant on the total frames of ASDC, not ASDQ. And how tight is the window to input all of this during ASDC? Well, approximately 53 frames, about 0.8 of a second. So obviously doing this tech just isn't reliable one-handed, especially on this cheaper of a traditional approach. In regards to the original Samurai, the fling is nowhere near as strong, and I have some guesses as to why it was easier with this new knowledge. Either ASDC lasted longer, the cancel timelines function a bit differently, or some hidden third reason that I can't even begin to guess. I'm going with the third, because even after a decade of playing this game, I'm still always wrong and always learning something new. But with all the annoying stuff out of the way, after a little bit of practice, I could do something like this.